Well, hello, welcome to my channel and today a new vlog. So I haven't done this in a while and I'm really feeling the need to do it, but I want to spend the next few days reading a bunch of new science fiction and fantasy releases. I have so many on my shelf, so many checked out from the library, like so many ebooks, just so many that I'm dying to get to. And you know, this is the perfect excuse to actually prioritize them for once because I literally never do. So I have a huge stack of options. I'm just going to see what I'm feeling, and anything that I don't get to in this one will probably be in part 2. So we have so many books. Let's take a look at some of the options that we have for this week. So let's take a look at the library books first. I know this one, Fractal Noise. Then what else? The Ferryman, that's a good option. So 2 of the physical library books that we might get to are The Ferryman by Justin Cronin or Fractal Noise by Christopher Paolini. So this one is it's in the world of Sleep in a Sea of Stars. I think this is like a 1.5, like kind of in between 1 and 2. I'm interested. I thought To Sleep in a Sea of Stars had a lot of potential, but it was just way too long. So I'm interested to be back in this world and kind of see what's going on. And then for ebooks that I have, there's Brandon Sanderson's Secret Project 3, Yumi and the Nightmare Painter. I do really want to get to this. It just came out a few weeks ago and it could be a really good time to finally get to it. What else? There's also The Book That Wouldn't Burn by Mark Lawrence. This one looks interesting. I'm not the biggest Mark Lawrence fan though, so I'm a little iffy. The Marriage Act by John Mars. Really excited to read this one. He has a lot of books that I really enjoy, and any of the ones that are like set in this kind of dystopian world I really like. And yeah, there's also Ascension by Nicholas Binge, and you know, so many others. There's more that will probably be coming in from the library as I do this, so we'll see what I'm feeling as I go. But I'm ridiculously excited. Not sure what I'm going to dive into first, but I'll let you guys know once I pick something, and stay tuned for lots of new SFF books. So I've gotten a bit over 50% into The Marriage Act by John Mars, and this one's like, it feels very similar to a lot of his other works, and again, it takes place in the same world, but it's like the same idea of either some like new technology or some new like law passing that is very much like a dystopian type of world, a dystopian type of setting, and just kind of we're following how people react to it. So in this one, it is a future version of England where there has been this new marriage act, imposed on people. So basically it's like single people are vilified, and if you are married, you get all of these different types of benefits and just social strategies that make your life so much easier. But it's not just a marriage per se that you need to be part of what they call a smart marriage, where you basically give the government the power to observe your marriage and determine if you deserve to be married. So part of it is that they basically have these rings that monitor married couples at all times, or so they say. They monitor them for a random 10 minutes throughout the day. And if they discover a pattern of couples speaking to each other in a way that the government finds troubling, they can put them onto these different levels of like watch. So there's like one where they just watch them a bit more closely, one where they bring a marriage counselor in, and one where they're basically brought to court and the court decides if they think they should be divorced. And again, these couples have no choice about whether or not they do get divorced. So it's just very much like people in these marriages are giving up all of their rights basically, and the government is now having complete control over their relationship. And also single people have like no benefits. They are heavily taxed. They don't get access to healthcare. They don't get access to insurance, like all of this stuff. So it's very much like you have to be in one of these smart marriages to really like thrive in society. So similar to much of John Mars' work, we are following a few different people as they are dealing with the consequences of this marriage act. which at this point has been out for like 10-ish years, and there are certain people who are either really enjoying the benefits of it or really like having their lives destroyed. And the concept of it is okay, but I find that this one, so far at least, is falling fairly flat for me compared to a lot of his other works, because I find so many of his books are like gripping page turners and you're so invested in trying to figure out everything that's going on. This one isn't really doing that for me, unfortunately. I'm finding it just okay, but I'm not super invested in anything. It's more like what's happening to these people is terrible, but I'm not really wanting to keep reading it, because at least in a lot of his other books, like I'm thinking about like The One, it was very fascinating. It was just very, very fascinating, and a lot of interesting stuff happened, but I don't know, I deeply cared about the characters and I wanted to see how everything unfolded. And this one, I'm just feeling terrible for everyone. So yeah, not enjoying it quite as much. I'm really, really hoping that something changes, my opinion changes, something picks up, but we'll see. I still have like 200 pages or so, you know, a lot can change. Hopefully something like really compelling or gripping happens, but so far it's just all right. I finished another book and I've been almost like putting off talking about it because I feel like I don't really know what to say. So the book I read, it was Ascension by Nicholas Binge. And it was weird, but I really, really love this one. So basically the book is in the style of letters written from this man to his niece that have been discovered after his death. And they tell the story of 30 years previously, so it would have been like in the 90s or so, where he was a really well-renowned physicist and had been invited on this scientific mission. He'd been invited on this scientific mission that was really secretive, but basically this like giant mountain appeared out of nowhere in somewhere. I think it was South America. It's been a few days since I read this. And he's invited as a physicist to come investigate what's going on. Him and a huge group of scientists, they are climbing this mountain and trying to figure out how it came from or where it came from. But also the previous group of scientists who had been invited to investigate it disappeared, aside from two of them who both seem to have slightly lost their minds, in the sense that they become very obsessed with time and keeping track because they keep saying that time is slipping away from them. And one of the people who came back seems almost to be able to tell the future. He says a few things that make it sound like he really is able to predict what's going to happen. So this group of scientists, led by like a military-esque group, they are ascending the mountain to try and figure out what's going on. And as things go up, things get super weird. People start getting paranoid. Something's clearly messing with their mind. And they're also coming to this realization that they are not alone on the mountain. There's something else there, something that's maybe taking over people or like influencing people. So I actually thought this was pretty amazing. It really ended up going off the rails in like a fantastic way. It went off the rails in like a way that I love with my sci-fi. It just got very weird, very philosophical in a sense, and really started asking these questions about humanity and where we come from and how we came to be, type of thing. And also just like this huge mystery of where the mountain came from. It ended up being such a weird reason, and this is just one of those examples of sci-fi being really fucking weird, but I love it. I sometimes love when it has the most like nonsensical answer ever to what's going on, and this is just great. I really, really enjoyed it. And I do think it's kind of hard to really get into a lot of what I liked about it without it being too spoilery, but this did end up basically being this man's journey up a mountain where things just start really unraveling in his life and his mind, and nothing is quite as it seems. So I think that this was insanely fun. I give it a 4-star because I loved it. I really, really loved it. I like my weird sci-fi. What else can I say? It's always a good time for me. So yeah, another book done, and I've been putting off talking about it because I don't even know how to describe why I loved it. I just thought it was very weird, and that always works for me. I'm not sure what I'm diving into next. Actually, I think next I'm going to do another sci-fi that I just started to listen to, which is called The Deep Sky. So that one I will come back and talk about when I have some updates. Okay, so I have finished reading The Deep Sky, and I really should have updated it as I was going, but this was so good. I'm really enjoying the vibes of the books in this vlog so far. Like, I feel like we're doing pretty good. We're doing pretty good because I'm enjoying quite a few of these, which, yeah, is fantastic. And yeah, I'm really enjoying them a lot more than I was expecting to, which also fantastic. And I'm really just enjoying this whole like doing like a new SFF vlog, which it's so far it's only been sci-fi, but I'm gonna try to do another fantasy one. But I think I'm gonna try to do these monthly because there's always so many like science fiction fantasy books coming out, obviously, and I personally like to stay up to date with them. And I'm always like, whenever there's a new exciting book release, I want to read it, right? Like, I really want to stay up to date with what's going on and also keep reading these books. So I think I'm gonna try to plan for one of these a month because, like, even just thinking now, I've read 3 books, I know what I'm gonna read next, and then I have a potential 5th. I think I know what I'm gonna do for the 5th one, but like looking at my shelves, I have at least like another 5. I'm sure I have another 5 on my shelves right now. Plus, like, I can think of so many other ones that I have on hold at the library that would be wonderful for one of these videos. So this whole thing, this whole ramble, just expect that in the future there will be one of these videos a month. So now let's actually talk about the book that I read, which is The Deep Sky. And this was fantastic. So I listened to the audiobook, which I would highly recommend for this one. It was very engaging, very fun, and just really, really interesting. So we're following a futuristic world where there's this like space exploration. Basically, a group of women are sent on a spaceship to potentially terraform, well, not potentially, to terraform an identified planet. So this group of women, it was a highly competitive like school, basically, where on Earth, there was this highly competitive school on Earth where basically girls started, they applied and started around the age of 12. And there was a certain amount of representatives per country that were allowed to go onto the ship. So each country backed a certain amount of money to get this project going forward. And then say like the US had 10 seats. So there's a certain number of girls competing for one of these 10 seats. And we follow this journey as they are in the school, really competitive, really competing and trying to become part of this long-term mission. So what is the mission? Obviously terraforming a planet, but they specifically picked women for this one because the intent is to have them all reproduce. And that was their whole thing, is that they are going to be the mothers of this new planet. So part of this journey, it's a 30-year journey. They spend the first 10 years asleep. The next 10 years they are awake. They are all being artificially inseminated and having children, raising them. And then the next 10 years is also asleep. And they're doing this because they figure that this 10 years of like the most intense child rearing will be happening on a ship where everything is like as easy as possible, instead of when they're landing on a new planet and trying to get things set up. So where the story really takes place is we are about a year into this 10-year period where people are awake, and there's this bombing that happens on the ship, and it ends up being that somebody, the captain dies, several people die, and it has this there's this huge mystery to try and figure out what caused it. Was it deliberate? Did somebody plant it? Like, was it planted there before the mission started? Was it somebody currently on the ship? Was it like for a certain reason? Because there's all these like basically environmentalist groups that are happening on Earth that are like really against this mission and want to see everyone die, or want to see the mission fail, I guess. So we're trying to figure out, like, are one of like the current crew members like affiliated with this group and trying to make the mission fail. So that's like this whole mystery. We're following a woman who is basically at the head of this investigation, and she's the one who's kind of spearheading it and making sure, trying to figure out what happened. And that's like the huge thing of the story. It's just we're trying to figure out what happened in here. Like, I really, really enjoyed this. It was like very fast paced. It was pretty thrilling. There was a lot of like weird turns that I didn't expect it to happen. And yeah, overall, this was really, really good. Like, seeing their growth on Earth as they go through this program too. I thought that was incredibly interesting, seeing this like competitive nature and how much all of these girls like fought to be where they are right now. And yeah, I really liked it. So I'm gonna give this one a 4-star. Honestly, my only thing that didn't really work for me is towards the end, I feel like it got a little convoluted. It got really kind of weird at the end, and I don't even feel like I could properly explain what the motivation was for what happened to this mystery and like what they found out. That's my only thing, is at the end I could just kind of like, I lost the thread a little bit. And but otherwise, like, I really enjoyed this. I thought it was a super cool, like, futuristic world, cool space adventure. I love these space exploration type stories, or ones that are very like self-contained within a spaceship. I always find those super interesting. So I like this one a lot. I think it was really good. So I finished my next, I guess this one's science fiction, more dystopian new read. And I'm very thrilled to say that not only was this one fantastic, I think it is definitely my favorite read so far for this video. So what did I read? It was Chang'e All-Stars, which this one, this was so good. And I think out of all these books, this is the one that I would most highly recommend so far, especially because it feels like the one that's most relevant to today's world. So this book is really like a commentary on the penal system in the United States, and it was just absolutely brilliant. So, okay, let's talk about the actual plot first. So we are in a dystopian world where the penal system essentially becomes much more privatized, in the sense that they are trying to find a way to make money off of it. And the thing that all these corporations decide to do is create basically as they advertise it, the ultimate sports game, the ultimate, most, how would you describe it? Most intense athletic match in the world. So all prisoners in the prison system are eligible to sign up for this game. And it is essentially just fights to the death. So they are arranged in teams based off of what prison they come from, and all participants are basically promised that if they manage to make it 3 years in this game through these intense fights, they make it through 3 years of fighting, they are eligible to be released and basically pardoned for all of their previous crimes. So a lot of the people who join up are more hardened criminals who really are facing their entire life in prison, and basically this is their only option. And a lot of them really feel like if they had stayed in the prison itself, they would have likely died there. So we're following a woman named Loretta Thurwar. She is almost at the end of her mandatory 3 years of fighting. She has managed to survive all 3 years, and at this point is about 2 weeks out from being potentially freed if she wins her next 2 fights. So it's really just a bit of a journey between her from a fight and just this reality TV show that basically their lives have been made into between the games. So they are monitored 24/7, and people get really involved in these games because people sponsor them, people vote on them. They're basically everything that people talk online about. And yeah, this is just her battles, her life story, and then also diving into a lot of the lives of the opponents that she fights against, and really how their life is impacted by these games. So it really gets into the absolute despair most people this absolute despair that most people feel by the time they get into fighting in the games. And then after being in there for a few years, they've obviously killed quite a few people. So it feels like for so many of them that maybe they were in the prison for one murder, but at this point the games have turned them into a murderer, because maybe they did one crime they regret, but now here they've been in it for years and they've just been killing their way through. And I thought this was a brilliant commentary on the current prison system in the US, because each chapter ends with delving into some of the statistics of a lot of what is happening in the prison system at the moment. So it really talks about the disproportionate number of people of color who are incarcerated, and how the violence that so many trans people go through in the prison system, how many and then just the different types of crimes. So a drug related crime that's nonviolent can still at the same time be prosecuted really intensely, and you can be in prison for quite a long time if you're caught under certain circumstances, and just all of these different ways that people are really suffering, and how the system really does not work against the majority of people. So it's really good. There is also in terms of this commentary on it, there's a big group that's in the back in the back of this conversation who are really actively protesting against the games and really trying to get people to like abolish these games and all the participants. And I think it was just like really brilliantly crafted in that sense, because it had such like this intense, captivating story, and the criticism and commentary was just like so finely woven into it and really, really masterfully done. So I am giving this one a 5-star. Honestly, just like it was amazing. How many times have I said that? But I love the characters, I love the action, I love the world that we're in. It was just also fascinating. We really delved into the lives of so many of these people and just the terrible circumstances that brought them to where they are now, and just really, really sad circumstances for most of them. And it was great. I would highly recommend this. 5-star, absolutely. And so good. So at this point, I've read 4 books and gonna read one more. I've read all sci-fi at this point. So I'm gonna mix it up at this point and do one new fantasy release, which I am pretty sure, we'll see, which is going to be Yumi and the Nightmare Painter by Brandon Sanderson. So this is his secret project number 3, and I'm a little behind because this came out a few months ago, but I'm incredibly excited to get to this one. And then secret project 4 just released, so I want to get to this one, and then maybe in the next video I'll do number 4, but can't wait. I will come back once I've made some progress in this one. So very happy to say that I have finished the last book that I'm doing for this vlog, which is Yumi and the Nightmare Painter by Brandon Sanderson. So this is the 3rd of his secret projects that was released this year. And so for these, I feel like you really have to go into the mindset of knowing that these books were intended to be like fun little projects. They're not like his serious, intense, like Stormlight Archives type of books. Like they're not really this epic fantasy books. He really intended them to be more of fun little stories for his family. Like that is very much like he wrote most of these for his wife, and that's very much what the intent behind these are. So I feel like for these books, you really have to go in with that mindset that they're not supposed to be these intense, serious, like really big masterpieces of epic proportion. They really are just like fun little adventures in these fantastical worlds and chances for him to really have fun in these settings. And I think that this one was such a perfect example of something fun, but still very, very enjoyable and like very, very well done. So we'll start off by saying in the postscript of this book, he wrote that this one was really kind of like a Final Fantasy-esque inspired world, and that this was also, he really wanted to write something that's more of focused on everyday people in magical worlds and just like following somebody with a mundane job in this magical world. And I think that that very much carried through, but it also was a really, really fun aspect because these mundane jobs were still something more fantastical and still something more fun. So getting into the actual plot of the book, we're following Yumi, who is a religious figure in her world. She is essentially blessed by the gods and goes through these rituals every day to summon spirits and bless people of the town by giving them, like, basically binding spirits to certain objects so that they can do fantastical work. So some of it, like, the only thing that's coming to mind is that they can make certain items float because their ground is extremely hot in this world and they can't, like, necessarily plant items directly on the ground. So they create these, like, floating gardens, basically, and this is imbued by spirit power. And then on the other hand, we're following a nightmare painter, and in his world, there's living nightmares, and the only thing that stops them is doing these paintings that basically just imbue them with artistic inspiration, I guess, and they leave people alone. So it's a little confusing about what the roles of both these people are, and that was kind of the point of it, is that it is a little confusing. Some of this is a little weird, but it was more meant to be just weird and fun. So something happens. A spirit comes to Yumi and asks for her aid, and she says yes, and then immediately, somehow, she and the painter are linked together. So her spirit goes to his body, his spirit comes to her body, and they live in each other's worlds, and they are trying to figure out what the spirits are asking and why they, of all people, were brought in to do this job. So we're just following them on this little mystery as they are trying to figure out what they're trying to do, like what they're supposed to be doing, why they were recruited, and also living in each other's worlds and really like trying to help each other, I would say, become better people, but it's more of to find out like how to stand up for yourself. And like Yumi lives this very sheltered life and she's trying to find a way to advocate for what she wants, whereas the painter is very isolated and doesn't know how to make amends with former friends. So it's really that, and it was super fun. It was really, really fun. Like that, again, like if you go in with that mindset of this is just meant to be a fun story, fun, like kind of weird story, and like a creative world, just kind of like going on a fun adventure, it's wonderful. It absolutely delivered on that. And then this one is a Cosmere novel as well, so you do have those references to Roshar and the larger Cosmere. It's also narrated by a very familiar character, and there's lots of interesting tie-ins to the Cosmere. So overall, I really thought this one was great. I really thought it was super fun, and this is definitely more of the type of fun Sanderson work that I really enjoy. Like when we look at A Frugal Wizard's Guide to Surviving Medieval England, I think that's what it's called, I didn't enjoy that one at all because I thought that was just silly, and I don't really enjoy that style of his humor. I enjoyed this one where it's just kind of a little weird, a little fun, but he's not really trying to be funny. So I did think this one was really great. I'm gonna give it a 4-star. So in terms of the secret projects, I still think Tress of the Emerald Sea is my favorite because I really, really loved that whole like Princess Bride-esque vibe, and really, really enjoyed that one. So this, we're gonna say the second of my favorite. And Secret Project 4 just came out, so obviously I'm going to be reading that soon. So with this book being done though, we are officially done this new SFF. So I read 4 science fictions, 1 fantasy, and overall I am incredibly impressed by the variety of the books that I read and as well as their quality. So I think every book I read this week, unless I'm mistaken, was a 4 or 5 star, which truly is fantastic. And I'm really, really impressed with all of these books that are coming out. Plus, I have so many more that I want to do a reading vlog for soon. So definitely keep your eyes out for another installation of this coming probably next month, because I just find keeping up to date on these new SFF releases so much fun. And you can really find some like incredible hidden gems of these books that maybe aren't as popular or not as many people talk about. So as always, if you haven't already, please subscribe. I would love to have you join the channel, and hopefully I will see you in my next video. Bye.